How do you feel knowing that in a few hours from now, you will be leaving this earth? You will be leaving your stuff, what you own, your home, your friends, and everything. You will be leaving and going into another place. Because remember, Brother Joshua told us this about 23rd of September.
And told me on the 23rd and the 24th of the Feast of Trumpets in September 2025, I will come to take my church.
What's up, everybody? So I'm not going to sit here and make fun of anybody for what they believe. One, the day ain't over yet, and the rapture could come in the blink of an eye if you believe that's a literal event to take place. But more importantly, two, I can't blame anybody for wanting something better. And if in your mind that means that corpses rise from the grave and ascend to the clouds, then all of the true believers, the ones that believe in the right specific interpretations of the Bible, levitate into the clouds to join them, well then, so be it. I've seen a lot of good people that wouldn't hurt a fly on here truly believing this. And you know what? It ain't hurting me. It ain't hurting you. And with everything going on in the world today, those people are the least of our problems. I've heard all kinds of stories like this. He was playing in a softball league and he made it to second base and turns around and you finally see the backside of the pitcher's jersey for the first time because you only see him from the front when you're at bat. So now he's on second base and seeing the backside of the pitcher's jersey for the first time.
Oh, you turned and saw it was the number 23 or the number 24. And that's a reasonable thought. But no, here's exactly what I saw when I turned from second base, getting up after my double, turning and looking at the pitcher. And remember, I'm the only one there who even believes this is happening. And there's 6 teams playing. So the chances of me being there at that time to see this jersey is just God. That's just all it is. So here, we're going to show that to you now. So, let's get that centered properly. I'm having a hard time here. So as you can see, unbelievably, somebody has a jersey that is both a 9 and a 2. So God showed me a jersey that says 923 out of a 2-digit jersey. And it's still blows my mind.
So I'm not going to lie, that would trip me out too. I've had all kinds of insane synchronicities in my life before that just made me say, wow. And this is literally the first time in all of our lives that we've seen somebody combine a 9 and a 2 and put that on their jersey. So when you see something that you've literally never seen before and it is spot on perfect to whatever you have in your mind, then it's going to get to you. But then other people are really stretching.
I have told you over and over and over, okay, girl? Like, I've given you confirmation after confirmation. I'm asking him this for the 100th time, okay? And I see the clouds just coming together and forming an S. Formed an S, and I'll show you guys a picture here. You guys tell me what you see.
Okay, so it looks kind of like a S, more of a 5 to me. But then what does S mean? Does it mean September 23rd? Does it mean yes? What is S? But what I see is a woman that got a seed planted in her head, and she's going around the house and asking God if this is really real. And if this is really the rapture, give me a sign and show me that little Johnny actually did his homework last night. And then she checks, and little Johnny actually did his homework. But you know, the human mind is an amazingly cunning device. And you combine that with the internet and thousands of other people all saying the same thing, and it doesn't take long till somebody's eternally in the rabbit hole. There's never a bottom to the rabbit hole. There's just more and more stuff to dig up. And the more popular a subject is on social media, then the more completely irrelevant crap is going to get associated with it. The Simpsons have had some amazingly accurate forecast on things, but, you know, sometimes things just get taken too far and people are seeing things that aren't there. This doesn't even make sense. 1, 2, 3 somehow now equates to 923. I guess 12 minus 3 is 9, but you're just completely making up arbitrary rules of math. Why isn't it 12 plus 3 equals 15 plus 1, so it's 6? I can spin this into whatever number you're looking for. And a couple of people have brought this up in the comments. Yeah, I've heard the date 923 before somewhere too. I can't remember exactly what. I found this, and it's easy to say, wow, 7 years old, but you can change the title of a video at any time. But I'm thinking I remember 923 as an occult holiday of the Brotherhood or something. This one was great, and it just goes to show this is the Left Behind series, and it has volumes such as The Rising, The Rapture, Left Behind, Tribulation Force, and The Glorious Appearing. But do you guys realize who wrote these books? Jerry B. Jenkins. And do you know what day Jerry B. Jenkins was born on? September 23rd.
The sound of the trumpet stopped when the decision was made in my heart.
Now, 10 years ago, it was really popular among creators to come on and say, I don't believe in coincidences. And I used to play that game too, but now I'm like, nope, there's all kinds of coincidences in the world. Now, when I hear that, I think they're trying to sell me something. And the internet's track record for predicting something is 0 for 10,000. There's never once been somebody came on the internet and said, this is going to happen on this specific date, and it happened. Remember a couple years ago when they were going to send out emergency text to everyone? Well, that got combined with the church fight scene from The Kingsman, and it was going to override everyone's neurons to the point of agro-specificity, and everyone was going to turn into zombie-like automatons. Which, by the way, if you've never seen this, this was probably one of the best fight scenes in cinema history. All one continuous shot. Amazing work. But I think it's safe to assume that unless somebody's coming on the internet saying they're predicting tacos next Tuesday, then they're probably going to be wrong. This was 88 reasons why the rapture will be in 88. Then that got changed to 89, 90, 91, etc. And in 2000, all the computers were going to crash because they had made them for the 1900s, then the Mayan calendar end of the world, and it goes on and on. And let's not forget that the gematria for Feast of Trumpets, which is what started today, is 923. I think everybody's getting the point. So let's talk about something with some substance here. Let's talk about the Bible and the Feast of Trumpets. So I know the vast majority of you have heard me talk about the Old Testament, but I got lucky and there are quite a few new people here for once. So I'm going to tiptoe into this, especially for the Christians. Just to be clear, I'm not saying anything bad about Jesus, but the Church of Rome and the Pharisees basically have invented this version of Hebrewanity that I disagree with. And to put it bluntly, I don't think the God of the Old Testament is the Father in heaven that Jesus was talking about. Before anybody gets mad and storms off, would it be the worst thing you ever learned if you found out that the true God doesn't require you to burn animals for him? And the true God doesn't promise a specific group of people somebody else's land, but doesn't tell them that part where there's already people living there. So once they get there, they have to G-side everybody that lives there and their livestock. And isn't it strange that all of the false gods required people to burn animals as sacrifice unto them? And then the true God comes along, the creator of the whole universe and beautiful mountain scenes and puppies, and he wants the same thing that the false gods want, burnt animals. This is really what the Feast of Trumpets that is starting today is all about. But let's start out with what Jesus said directly to the descendants and followers of Moses and his law. There's no guesswork here about who he's talking to. It says it right there. Jesus said to them, "If God were your father, you would love me, for I have come here from God. I have not come on my own. God sent me. Why is my language not clear to you? Because you are unable to hear what I say. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a red rummer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies." And the fact of the matter is, every time he brings up Mosaic law, which is the Old Testament law, he says, you got to do better than just that. That's the bare minimum. You say, don't commit adultery. I say, don't lust after her to begin with. And when the Pharisees couldn't trick him into breaking one of their laws, they had him crucified. So I know some of you heard me say this a million times. I'll say it 1,000,001. I grew up as a Christian, and just like a lot of other people, once I got old enough to learn about the Old Testament, I really struggled to reconcile that with the teachings of Jesus. Well, little did I know at the time that one of the earliest writers to compile a New Testament, Marcion, around 144 AD allegedly, preached that the benevolent God of the gospel who sent Jesus into the world as the Savior was the true supreme being, different and opposed to the malevolent deity, the demiurge or creator deity, identified with Yahweh in the Hebrew Bible. So some of the earliest Christians didn't believe that the father of Jesus was Yahweh. He never refers to him as such. And like I've said about historical timelines being off and just the overall picture that we're given of history, the Western world had no idea about the Mesopotamian cultures. And I'm trying to figure out how to do a video about what the Gnostics would have believed if they knew about the Sumerian texts. I'm not going to get sidetracked on that right now. But preachers have built whole religions off of taking one line here, one line there of Old Testament writings completely out of context and then acting like those two sentences are the most important things in the world. But let me tell you, there is nothing spiritual about the Old Testament. There's not a single claim saying that Yahweh is the God of the afterlife. Yahweh was just like the other little g gods that wanted burnt animals to him. So preachers will tell stories about the miraculous budding of Aaron's staff, but then they ignore the entire chapter leading up to that. So let's just read some Old Testament that every preacher in the world skips over. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram became insolent and rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Yeezy men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You've gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly?" Moses, the only one of them that had actually spent time around Yahweh and knew his wrath all too well, basically fell down face first saying, "You know not what you do." And then this power struggle arises over control of the priesthood. So Moses tells them, "You and all your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow and burn incense before the tent of meeting." And that's the same tent of meeting that Yahweh would descend in a ball of fire into to accept his offerings, to eat his meals. When Korah had gathered all his followers in opposition to them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the entire assembly. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Separate yourselves from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once." This is just one of many times that Yahweh is ready to eliminate the chosen from the earth. And once again, Moses falls down and begs and says, "Are you going to take out everybody because of this one man's sins?" So the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things and that it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death and suffer the fate of all mankind, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the realm of the dead, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt." As soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, their cousins, their nephews, their sons and daughters, and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. So then everybody's freaking out saying the earth is going to swallow us too. But that right there shows you their lack of a concept of the afterlife. The ground opened up and swallowed them down into Sheol or Hades, the realm of the dead. There is never any claim that Yahweh is the God of or has anything to do with your soul or spirit. It never even says that he is the God of this world. He is the God of this tribe, this group of people. Let's finish out this story and we can talk about other gods. The next day, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. Do not grumble or murmur against Yahweh. Because suddenly at the tent of meeting, the cloud covered it and the glory of the Lord appeared. A glowing cloud came down and tells Moses and Aaron, get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them. Again. So then Moses tells Aaron to burn some incense in a censer and make atonement for them. So Aaron did, and by the time he made it out there, the plague had already started among the people. But Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. But 14,700 people had just perished from the plague. And we lie to ourselves and we make excuses over this because there's no questioning the ineffable will of God. Right and wrong no longer matter because if God did it, then it's good. Now, back to other gods, there's quite a few mentions in different places, but after they had driven out the Amorites, Jephthah taunts their king and says, what, you won't take what your god Chemosh gives you? So the almighty, omnipotent, omniscient God of the universe is in a land struggle with this little g god Chemosh. And what he really wants is those people to be burning animals to him and not the other god. But since we're here, the book of Judges is a gem on everybody's personality that has to do with this. Talk about a guidebook of how to be awful neighbors, which they still follow to a T. But the Spirit of the Lord came on Jephthah. There was some psychic connection, prophecy, and power projection from God to people. He had an internet connection to the minds of his prophets. But once Jephthah is juiced up on the Spirit of the Lord, he says, if you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out the door of my house to meet me when I return home in triumph, I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. And if you want to talk about trickster gods and Faustian bargains, Yahweh epitomizes a deal with the devil. Because when Jephthah returned to his home, who should come out to meet him but his daughter dancing to the sound of timbrels? When he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, "Oh no, my daughter, you have brought me down and I am devastated. I have made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break." It sounds like she's the one to be devastated here, but she says, "My father, you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised, now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies. But grant me this one request. Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends, because I will never marry." Good reminder to the young ladies to have babies for the tribe there. So for 2 months, she and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never marry. After the 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. Okay, so what was it he had vowed? That he would sacrifice the first thing that came out to meet him at his house, which just happened to be his virgin daughter. And every deal that Yahweh makes with somebody is just like that, a double-edged sword. So I'm always a little trepidatious bringing this up for new people, because I know what it's like to hold religion very near and dear. But really all I'm saying is I think you need to take the Old Testament and take the New Testament and put them in completely different categories in your brain. I don't think the Old Testament should have ever been slapped on front of the story of Jesus, which is a long and complicated story of itself, you know? But I think the Old Testament is describing Yahweh no different from any of the other Greek or Mesopotamian gods. They all just wanted their burnt animals. And that Jesus was talking about a truly higher spiritual plane. And, you know, for all I know, he went off and studied with Buddhists. I don't know. Nobody seems to. There's rumors of him being up in England, which is a good story that I should get into. But all we've really got is the same 7 stories told by 4 different people. And then the Church of Rome's interpretation of that. So if this is something near and dear to your heart and you want to look more into it, I've got a whole playlist. And, you know, it took me years to get to the point where I'd allow myself to actually think about these things. And by separating Yahweh out of my idea of what this is all about, I actually feel a lot better knowing that the true God isn't this vengeful, wrathful thing with these completely stupid, arbitrary rules. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about the Feast of Trumpets. Anyway, I got this whole playlist if you want to look more into it. Don't get black-pilled about it. Just the whole point is, you know, you're not going to burn in hell because you believe slightly different on line item 63. But yeah, the Feast of Trumpets is nothing but another one of Yahweh's arbitrary rules that he just makes up. And he wants you to blow a trumpet and sacrifice a burnt offering, a young bull, and 1 ram. Also, 7 male lambs a year old. And they must not have any flaws. Present a grain offering along with this. And then give me 16 cups along with the ram, and then 8 cups along with each of the 7 lambs. Include a male goat as a sin offering. That'll pay for your sin of living. That is seriously what sin and forgiveness of sin is all about in the Old Testament. You just burn an animal and sometimes your virgin daughter. So sorry, I know for some people it's hard to allow yourself to think this, but once you do, then I can't justify the actions of God in the Old Testament. I don't want to. Nobody did. They were all terrified, so they did it. And yeah, if he descended in a ball of cloud and fire out in front of my house and said, do this, then I'd do it. But I don't know what happened to all the ancient gods. I don't know if they're underwater taking a nap right now inside of a mountain, but they went somewhere. Anyway, I'll quit rambling on here, but I really do think that a lot of people would feel a lot better about their spirituality if they realized that Yahweh doesn't have anything to do with the true God. Believe whatever you want to believe, but at least allow yourself to think about the uncomfortable things here. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you on the next one. Static out.